Vehicle crashes are the second leading cause of firefighter line-of-duty deaths. Not wearing seatbelts is the #1 safety violation in the fire service. In the past 30 years, over 400 firefighters have been killed in vehicle crashes. About 300 of them did not have their seatbelt on. We continue to kill 10 firefighters each year due to no seatbelts. There is no excuse for not buckling up. Hello, I'm Dr. Burton Clark. We can stop this needless and tragic loss of firefighters' lives immediately. Do you wear your seatbelt every time you're on a moving apparatus? Do you make your partner put their seatbelt on? As the driver, do you only move the apparatus when everyone is seated and belted? As the company officer, do you enforce the fire department's seatbelt rules? Finally, to all the fire chiefs, do you have 100% compliance 100% of the time with your seatbelt policy? If you can say yes to these questions, congratulations. If your answer is no, or I'm not sure, you have work to do.
Reducing speed and driving defensively will help ensure our safe arrival at the intended destination. If we think it can't happen to us, on the left is a picture of engine 46 after a rollover, and on the right is engine 508. The next video is Chief Jeff Crow on wearing seatbelts and slowing down.
Most firefighters who die on duty nationwide die while responding to and returning from incidents. In other words, most on-duty deaths are in vehicular accidents. In August of 2006, I was in the chief's car directly behind an engine when it crashed and rolled over on its side in front of me. One firefighter suffered a broken neck in that accident, and it's lucky that all of them weren't killed. We've been pretty good about wearing seatbelts on EMS and other non-fire responses, but we've been bad about not wearing seatbelts while en route to fires. Our apparatus now have sensors that tell us who's wearing seatbelts and who isn't, and whether or not the sensors have been tampered with. There's no excuse now for not wearing our seatbelts anytime we're in a moving apparatus. Our rules and regulations allow us to drive 5 miles per hour over the speed limit downtown and 10 miles per hour over the speed limit in other places. Any more than that and we're breaking the rules. With GPS tracking, OEC can monitor the speed of every apparatus, and they'll be doing that on about 30% of our responses. Sensors in the vehicle will record how fast it's going at every moment, including the moment when an accident occurs. We can no longer get away with excessive speeding. By learning our response areas, being aware of other traffic, and knowing the limitations of our apparatus, we can respond quickly to emergencies without excessive speed. I urge you to wear your seatbelts anytime you're in a moving apparatus and control your speed on all emergency and non-emergency responses.
This is the tale of two rollovers. The first one was in Raleigh, North Carolina in July of 2009 on ladder tiller 4, and the second one was in San Antonio in November of 2010 on ladder 35. It teaches us the difference between wearing seatbelts and not wearing seatbelts.
Seatbelts are the key. It saved my life that day, because if I didn't have it on, I'd have been straight across that yard.
As a company officer, making sure everybody's wearing that seatbelt. I took mine off, and I swear I cannot remember. I feel like I had relatched that belt, but at the same time, I went out the front windshield. It was my mind so focused on making that run that I just forgot about that belt.
Never thought of all the people that was associated with me going to the fire calls. How it was my responsibility to make sure they got there safely and that they got back to the fire station safely. Looking back, I thought I knew where the line was. It really has made an impact on the way I think about that if I'm driving a piece of equipment.
I was busy changing that radio channel that we blew a red light. I don't even remember slowing down for it. And in my mind, I assumed it was green because I wasn't looking at it. Now, let's slow down. Let's take these turns slower. Let's stop for these stoplights. Let's stop for the stop signs and see our way clear. If we would have stopped for that stoplight, this truck would have never turned over.
The key is we look after our families as much as we can. Well, when we're at work, we look after the citizens as much as we can. But sometimes we take that extra risk and we're looking after the customers by trying to rush to get there, or the citizens to get there, and it's like we're putting our families on the back burner, so we're actually not looking after our families anymore. And I don't drive like I used to. I mean, it's taken me some deep down inside, you know, looking at my soul, thinking about it. And I love driving. I'm not scared to drive, but it was hard, you know, and thinking about it every day.
In the Raleigh, North Carolina rollover, 3 firefighters were only slightly injured and 1 was not injured at all. All of them were wearing their seatbelts. There were no punishments handed down. The members were only asked to make a training and safety video. In San Antonio on Ladder 35, the firefighters weren't so lucky.
It was a suspicious accident. Multiple firefighter injuries. $800,000 in damage. Who is being held accountable? Tonight, the video and questions surrounding the Ladder 35 rollover.
Happening now, a 36,000-pound fire truck rolls over, trapping a firefighter inside.
The crew was on their way to a fire when suddenly the massive truck flipped onto its side, trapping the firefighter and sending 3 other firefighters to the hospital.
In San Antonio, all 4 of the firefighters were at least slightly injured, and 1 had to be extricated for over an hour. He ended up with a broken neck. The captain was suspended for 60 days since the crew was ultimately his responsibility. The EO was suspended for 45 days. The firefighter was suspended for 5 days. There's a growing national trend to punish firefighters and deny full benefits when firefighters are injured or killed while not wearing seatbelts. In general, we need to just stop making excuses for not wearing our seatbelt.
It just slows me down.
It's too hard to do it and put my gear on.
I'm not comfortable.
I'm a big guy, I can't do it.
I'm just not comfortable wearing it.
You gotta be kidding me. Real firefighters don't need them.
Come on, there's no way I can wear my SCBA and my seatbelt at the same time.
Yes, we've heard all the excuses, but we can think of at least one good reason why you should buckle up. Can't you? Be a hero to those who mean the most to you. Buckle up. A message from the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation.
This is the story of Eddie DiMartino, an assistant fire chief of a volunteer fire department in New York. He was injured in a wreck while on duty. After the wreck, he required up to 64 appointments per month of occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech therapy. He still only estimates himself to be at 90% of where he was before the wreck.
On the night of February 18th, 2009, it was a Wednesday evening. My wife and I are both teachers. We were on winter recess that week, so approximately around 10:15, I was bathing my son, and the fire alarm went off. It was a routine traffic accident.
When he left for the call, any wife of a chief says, "Do you really have to go? Don't go." My son said the same thing, and he said, "I'll be right back. I won't be long."
Being a volunteer, when the alarm goes off, it's just duty calls. You know, you do what you have to do. I got into my chief's truck. The road conditions were very icy. I responded to the scene. I was heading down the road. The dispatcher called me and said there was no need for the fire department, so I immediately responded back via radio to the dispatcher and stated to hold our engine in quarters. I went from code 3, which is lights and sirens, to code 2 response, which is no lights and sirens. I was continuing my response to the scene, and that's all I thought about.
Stand by, Clinton Heights Fire Department. Ready for a rescue squad. Rescue 6-2, traffic accident with injuries, a rollover. Red Mill Road at Robin Lane. Time is 22:20, dispatcher 6.
There was pounding on my window and my door.
There was a million and one things going through my mind.
I thought it was Ed just goofing around like he normally does.
What am I going to say to his wife?
When I went to go answer the door, it was the chief of the fire department.
My full-time employment, I'm a police officer, and this is probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to do.
He said, your husband's been in a car accident in the chief's vehicle, and we're going to head up to the emergency room. Let's go. And he said that, the road conditions were horrible. While responding, his truck went off the road, and his truck flipped, and he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. There was no airbag deployment, and it's not good. He's in rough shape.
Car 1, extrication complete, packing the patient at this time, 2235.
On the way to the hospital, the first thing that went through my mind after hearing the chief describe his apparent condition was, what am I going to do without my husband, and what is my son going to do without a dad? And the whole trip, I just begged and begged that it'd be okay. I prayed the entire way. And it was the longest trip ever. I didn't think we'd ever get there. When I saw him at first, I was a disaster. I was a wreck. The hospital was immediately just rushed with firefighters and police officers and nurses that were friends of firefighters and police officers, and they all just rushed to my side and said, you don't have to do this alone. We're all right here. When I entered the ER, I went right into where they were treating him, and I said, hi, it's Meg, it's going to be okay, I'm right here, right here. And he looked up and said, who's Meg? They were asking him at the time, what year is it, sir? Do you know where you are? And he responded, it was 1995. And of course, I just broke down. That was a very, very rough night, the night of the accident. Very long night. I had the chief by my side every second. He refused to leave the hospital. He stayed right by my side when my husband was moved to a hospital room and was more set up with everything. There came a time finally when I was just so exhausted I had to leave. I had to go home and take a nap. And so many people graciously took over and sat by my husband's bedside 24/7. If a nurse or a doctor came in, they wrote down notes of what was said, what was done, what medicine he took. And I was never left out of a situation for having to go home and get some sleep. So I either had a firefighter in a chair next to him, a police officer. There was someone always there. As I stayed at the hospital with my husband for the next 4 days, our 5-year-old Nicholas was cared for by other family members, and slowly things started to come out of what was on his mind and how this was all affecting him. One of the first things that he said to another family member was, my daddy's been in a car accident and he's dead. The weeks that followed after the accident, Nicholas acted out. In school, in daycare, he was just a wreck. He actually had a little altercation with another friend at school, and the little boy in turn asked our son, who are you mad at? Why are you mad at me? Why are you pushing me? And he said, I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at my daddy. I'm really mad at my daddy because he didn't wear a seatbelt. And I'm safe. Why wasn't my daddy safe that night? And, and being in a great school environment, they talk about safety all the time. And we buckle up our son every day. And he knows that, and he knows to wear a helmet when he rides a bike. And he just couldn't understand the fact that Daddy didn't buckle up. And he had heard me talk to other members of the fire company about the seatbelt and how it could have impacted his life or death. And it was not until that day at school that he finally came out and said what was bothering him. And his words were, why wasn't my daddy wearing a seatbelt?
Eddie DiMartino realized he probably would not have been injured if he had been wearing a seatbelt. It's interesting to look at our seatbelt habits in a private vehicle versus a Houston Fire Department apparatus. Here's some questions to think about. In a private vehicle, do you buckle up when in a moving vehicle? Do you encourage family members to buckle up? I imagine the answer is yes to both of those questions. But do you buckle up when making a run in an HFD vehicle? Do you encourage fellow firefighters to buckle up? Have you ever had a near miss or a close call? Life is all about choices. The question is, will you choose to go home to your loved ones? If the answer is yes, then you need to wear your seatbelt. What choice will you make? This is Senior Captain Scott Zog on why he wears his seatbelt and how to put your PPE on while wearing your seatbelt.
I've been looking for the best method for me that will allow us as a crew to still respond quickly and yet be within the parameters of safety. We're going to respond safely every time, but we are also going to respond quickly as we can every time. So we've been trying to combine those two philosophies really. And for me it hinges really on two things before we talk about anything that we do in terms of gearing up, and that's training and also where you put your gear. So as a crew we practice, we train on where exactly our equipment goes, on whatever individual method we each use, and then we will spend time in a training evolution simply gearing up and seat belting. And basically the method that I use, riding in the front facing forward with the way our air pack is situated, is as follows, and I allow the firefighters can choose their own method as long as they're ready to seat belt and go when I'm ready. I leave my boots right outside my door and my coat hanging up on the handle. I put my boots on, sling my coat on, I hop up into the pumper, I throw my seatbelt on, shut the door, tell the chauffeur we're ready to go.
Seatbelt, let's go.
At that point, anything that happens from there on, we're making progress towards our fire. We're making progress towards saving a victim. Then I go ahead and don my SCBA face piece and put the hood over. Since we're already traveling, I'm a little less under the gun, I guess you could say, and I make sure I take my time and get geared up properly. We're already moving anyway. There's no time, I don't think, where I've tried to gear up in that pumper where I don't hit some kind of bump. Something's going to go a little bit wrong, and so it's important to just stay calm and make sure your methods are good and go back and check yourself. I have my whole coat, I pull my whole coat up so it's kind of resting on top of the seatbelt so that I'm free to move. And then I tuck in the hood, like a lot of guys do that, tuck in the hood, lift up the coat and drag it down over the hood so that I know I have a good seal. And I buckle here so I keep that good seal. And then I buckle on the way down. SCBA strap, SCBA strap. So I have my SCBA on. I don't try to tighten it or anything until I'm there, or do that waist strap until I'm on scene. Helmet, I already have my thermal imager attached to my SCBA and my flashlight. So when I get out, everything that I need besides a hand tool comes with me, and then I can adjust my SCBA as I need to on scene. I put on only one glove because I make sure as we get close to scene I have a hand with full dexterity that's able to find that seatbelt, because you kind of have to dig for it a little bit in your gear and make sure that I'll be able to unclasp when it's time to get out. Training is key to whatever specific steps you develop, and I doubt that anybody will gear up with a seatbelt exactly the same way. We're all different body size and we work with our gear differently. But if you don't train with it, it's pretty certain that you won't do it well, or you won't do it with a seatbelt. Because it's difficult for me in the captain's seat, especially gearing up, to be able to put my eyes on each of them. As part of our training evolution, I have them watch exactly the sequence that I go through and allow them to time me. And I'm not trying to impress anybody when they watch me. I just want them to know this is how long it takes me, and I expect you to be ready when I'm ready. When my seatbelt goes in, then I'm going to tell the chauffeur we're ready to go. He can then look back and make sure that each of those firefighters are seatbelted. You know, it's a large apparatus, and I think there was a time in the fire department where we felt we were insulated from anything that could possibly go wrong because we were riding in such a large apparatus. But the fact of the matter is, when this hits an object in a way that we don't predict, or something goes wrong, I'm still just a human being, and I'm still going to fly until I reach that next object. And I don't want that next object to be the windshield, or flying through the windshield, or flying into my chauffeur. You know, if we were to roll on our side, I could injure somebody else besides myself. So it's not only safe for me, really it's responsible for anybody in the cab.
Sometimes we think it's okay to not wear a seatbelt in a heavy apparatus. This next video is made by Pierce, and it shows us what would happen to us inside of a heavy apparatus in the event of several different kinds of accidents.